Have you ever considered that you might not actually like photography? Even if you do it all the time, you obsess over cameras and famous photographers, you spend hours scrolling down Instagram for inspiration, and you get excited on Fridays, not because you want to go out and party, but because you want to get up early on Saturday to go take pictures. But also, sometimes when you have that itch, that creative energy, and you have your camera in your hands, you just can't seem to press the button and create anything. Have you ever considered that photography might just be an excuse, the best excuse in the world? An excuse for what? Let me explain. Over the last few years, I've found myself trackside at drift events, in nightclubs and concert halls, at skate parks and ballrooms, at abandoned garages and protests of all sorts, and not because I belonged in any of those places, but because I had a camera with me. I think that photography is the world's best excuse to try anything, to go anywhere, and to do so much more, somehow including finding yourself on stage with a Ukrainian punk rock band. I'll explain that one later, but first I'll break down the 3 key ways that your camera isn't really a camera at all, and more than an excuse, it's kind of a passport. The first and most obvious thing that the camera unlocks: literal doors. Sometimes ones that say staff only or backstage on them. See, everyone needs photos, and I do mean needs. Right now, if it isn't on Instagram, it didn't happen, and if it is on Instagram, they got 12 likes and none of your followers saw it. Being a photographer, or even just the camera guy, means that whenever anything is happening, people think, hey, we should get the camera guy to come take pictures. And to be honest, a lot of the time when you're chilling in the race car garage thinking, oh my god, they're letting me near the race cars, they're thinking, thank god we get to have some photos. And the great thing about this is it doesn't have to be complex. You don't need to be internet famous or shoot for Nat Geo to do this. You just need to send an email and say, hey, I've shot a few concerts, you want me to shoot for you? Now, of course, once you do have a few different events and bits and pieces under your belt, stuff for friends and coworkers, it might pay to have something a little bit more professional than email attachments. And that's why, before we get to the 2 more exciting and important ways that your camera is an excuse, I'd love to introduce you to the sponsor of today's video, which is Framer. Framer makes it easy for anyone to publish a website in literally minutes. When you're emailing people for that access that the camera gives you an excuse to have, it makes a lot of sense to put your best foot forwards, and Framer makes that so easy that it's kind of unreal. You can use one of the 700 plus templates, I think, to make it quick and easy, which is what I do most of the time. But if you're a fancy pants clever cookie, you can get really in detail and make some pretty crazy and unique websites. Here, I'm using the Lando template to make a super minimalist and modern music portfolio with a bit of edge. I can literally just swap out these photos for ones I've shot and it looks great. Maybe I want to rearrange some bits, more photos up the top. I can literally just drag this layer up, easy. We know about layers, we're photographers, it's basically the same thing. That's another thing that really rocks about Framer is you don't need any technical knowledge to make it work, you just need to know what looks good, and we've got that covered. Framer makes it easy. There's also a lot of these little pre-built sections and features which makes it super quick to just add stuff. Maybe I want a little scrolly carousel, there it is. You could do one of these portfolio websites for all of your work, or you could even split it out depending on the sort of access you want. Maybe you do one for concerts, one for race cars, and one for skateboarders. It's so easy. You know what else is easy? Clicking the link in the video description to learn more, sign up for free, and get 25% off Framer for 3 months. You can check out this specific website that I'm showing you here at punktographer.com. A big thank you to Framer for making this video possible. So getting access is one thing, but another thing entirely is making connections. See, when you're standing awkwardly in the corner eating chips and dip at a conference, nobody wants to talk to you. But if you're walking around a conference with a camera, all of a sudden there's instantly an excuse to talk to people and for people to talk to you. When you're the photographer, suddenly you kind of feel like you're meant to be there, and so does everyone else. Once you've done the, you guys want a photo? you're in. And it just becomes so much easier to meet people, have a laugh, and gives you a starting point to actually talk about something instead of just going up to a circle of people and awkwardly trying to join in. I'm pretty settled here in Warsaw now, touch wood, but I used to move countries every year or so, and I needed to be able to find friends and people to go to concerts with and stuff. And that's the fun part. This isn't just for business events. You can do this when you're in the city doing street photography, or when you're at a bar, or even when you're shopping if you're feeling brave. But the coolest thing is that you don't just get to make friends and break the ice, and you don't just get to be the camera guy, but it opens the door to stuff way outside of photography. I love cars and racing, and simply being able to drop somebody a DM on Instagram and offer to come take some photos at a show, or if they're doing a big project, has been enough to make me lifelong friends and get me introduced to the local scene. You'd be really pleasantly surprised at how quickly you can go from a photographer to that's our mate who takes photos. And that's not just because people want photos from you. I think when you're photographing people, you're very tangibly showing them proof that you see them and you understand them. You get me? But the most important excuse, the excuse to discover, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before. Okay, what? Okay, when you're the photographer, you're there and you're involved with what's going on, but you're not really fully participating per se. I mean, there's literally glass and metal between you and everybody else. And why, yes, I have used that as a crutch for anxiety in the past. But on the flip side, it's an insanely useful way to go places that you aren't quite sure you want to go, to investigate subcultures that you're not fully in. Like I said before, I love racing. I grew up racing, and so I know that I can go to any garage and be cracking jokes with car guys anywhere in the world, but I'm not a skater. At all. I could do an ollie when I was 14, maybe. But because I'm a photographer, it gives me an excuse to go and hang out at the skate park, meet the skaters, and get to peek inside their world, to get a feel for what it might be like if I ever developed any sense of balance whatsoever or landed a shove-it. It's also a nice bonus that I own a couple of fisheye lenses, and skaters love that. I mean, that's how I ended up on stage with a Ukrainian punk rock band. I was kind of interested. I sent an email asking to photograph them, and a couple of hours, a lot of sweat, and 55 gigabytes of photos later, I've now shot a basement punk gig, and well, I'll be honest, I had a blast. It's also how I ended up in a university engineering lab filming for a thesis project, and they let me use their laser cutter. I got to learn so much about engineering and what it would have been like if I'd went to university just because I was the camera guy that somebody happened to know. That's how you might not actually enjoy photography, and why sometimes you might have that creative energy, but you just can't seem to make anything. Because let's be real, sitting and taking photos of the wall over and over again isn't what we love. It's not this, it's the world that we love. And the camera is just a really good reason to go out into the world, touch some grass, and see what happens. It's the ultimate life side quest. And if you're not already taking your camera everywhere, just in case, you should. It'll change your life. And yeah, that includes when the weather sucks. And if you think you can't take good photos when it's crap outside, watch this and I'll teach you. Stay hydrated and create art.